I'm going to start with a story, and I'm going to start with a very personal story about my understanding of do more with less. How many of you this morning were here for the first 2 or 3 keynote sessions? Show of hands is fine. Okay, so those of us that were here, we heard Susanna Streeter, formerly of the BBC and now of Hargreaves Lansdown, talk about the global economy. And then she's talked a little about the UK economy. And then we got on to talking about AI and the combination of emerging technologies, the uncertainty that brings about whether to hire or up your headcount, and then, technology, uncertainty, shrinkage in the economy, all that stuff. That's where this impact, this do more with less is coming from. And I sat there this morning going, we get it. It was an amazing couple of sessions, really good way to spend an hour and a half sort of seeing the macro view. But my view was, we get it. We're all feeling it. Every single one of us in this room has heard some version of the instruction, do more with less. And the reason we started at my place of work, Orbital X, we're a marketing resource group. The reason we started having this conversation with the market about do more with less is because the question emerges, fucking how? Honestly, how? Like, we get it, we get the reasons for it, but genuinely, how does that work? We've all been in B2B for a number of years where cash was flush. I'm not saying it was on tap, but the playbook was growth at all costs. And that meant we could take risks, and that meant we could pitch things. That meant we had campaigns to play with. Do more with less doesn't yet have a playbook, which is what we're doing here and why I'm genuinely delighted to be having this conversation with you guys today. And my personal story is this. About 2.5 years ago, September 22, I was made redundant for the umpteenth time. I have become so good at being made redundant, I can't tell you. I'm brilliant at it. And every time I've ever been made redundant, I've had this fallback, as I'm sure many of you have, gone, okay, let's get on with it. I'll be a consultant for a while until the next gig comes. And in 23, that was brilliant. It wasn't particularly exciting. It was a bit lonely to be on my own the whole time, and clients can be a pain in the arse when you're a one-person band, right? But it worked. We paid our bills, and nobody was any the wiser. In 24, things fell off a cliff. Honestly, there was genuinely no work. Was it the UK election coming up? Was it the US election coming up? Was it the emergence of AI? Was it the war in Europe for the first time in God knows how long? People were sitting on money. They were sitting on decisions. They were delaying quarter by quarter. Jobs that we were applying for were disappearing even when you got to the final stages. The uncertainty hit peak. And for those of us who were looking for a monthly income, it got really desperate. And I did some research and I found the following. 75% of Brits don't have savings over 2,000 quid. I think I've been hanging out for a long time with loads of people that either did or appeared to have a buffer. For years, I've been in what some protesters would call the 1%. But 2 or 3 months without income, suddenly it starts to get very serious. We didn't have savings. And I was in loads of conversations about jobs and loads of conversations about consultancy projects, but they were all being delayed. And at one point I had to turn to Deborah, my wife, and say, sweetheart, we're about to default on our mortgage. And when you have that conversation, it's part, oh shit, but part, I'm really curious as to what this actually means. What happens next? We phoned our bank and said, hi, it's us, we're about to default on our mortgage. And the answer that came from the banks was, that's all right, don't worry about it. our customer debt teams have all been rebranded as customer support teams, because more and more of you who have never experienced this before are falling right down to the bottom 20%, and you are going to need help. So we're going to help you. We've got all these schemes and all these things. All we ask of you is that you call us absolutely every month and tell us how you're doing. That's what we ask. And we were like, that's it. You're not going to come and get the house. You're not going to come and, because I could sell the kids. I don't know what I'd get for them, but honestly. And that was it. So from then on, mortgage, bills, debts for 9 months. And we both started volunteering for food banks on the basis that we were using those food banks for the first time to get through. I've been in my life the editor of Marketing Week. I've been very, very high up in ad agencies like yourself. I've been global communications director at big SaaS firms that are operating all over the world. I've been in New York for a week, a month. I never thought I was safe, but I did have people that said to me a couple of times in my career, and I honestly thought at the time it felt like bullshit, but they said to me, you'll never have to worry about a job again. You can basically call your own. I was like, I don't think that's the way it works. But I never expected to get to the point where I was one of those that needed the help. And the curious and fascinating thing was that you go from being one of the 1% straight down to needing that kind of help. It's really, really curious. It's really fascinating. On a kind of intellectual basis, you kind of, how much can we let go? How much can we get rid of? How much can we sell? How much can we not spend anymore? And we still need help. And the school phoned and said, we understand you're in trouble. And you go, well, where did you hear that from? And they said, it doesn't matter. By the way, 30% of parents at your kids' school are accepting food bags on a Friday. Would you like that? And we're like, yes. And every Friday, you sort of wandered in from the playground to the office and they handed you a brown bag full of stuff. And you said nothing and they said nothing and you just wandered out. And my kids would see it and they would say, Dad, are we poor? And you'd go, no. Look at, what do you mean by poor? Look at where we live and look at what, we're not poor. We are in the market for some help right now. And for about 8 or 9 months, I was selling projects, I was selling training, I was singing with a ukulele. I literally did everything we could, and we were volunteering. And we held our nerve because we knew that it was one person making one decision at one time, and here's the crazy bit, you'd go straight back up to the top. You'd have some debt to pay off, we're still working on that, but you just go straight back to your old life. And it's given me a really, really fascinating insight into this country in 2025. So when Susanna talked this morning about the global economy and the UK economy and the uncertainty and the AI and the impact of it all, I was feeling it. I was like, yeah, I know that nobody's messing around when they say do more with less. I know I'm not a marketer that's going to go, oh, for God's sake. Honestly, marketing's an investment, not a cost. Or listen, guys, if you show you these numbers, I've seen it. I've been in a place where I understand the need to do more with less. And now I work, and by the way, the worst bit of the whole affair was feeling like the first call that came my way, I'm going to have to take, and it might be awful. It might be a god-awful position doing god-awful things for god-awful people, and that was my existential fear. Happily, just to round it up, I'm in the best job I've ever been in. I'm happier than I've ever been. I work with the best people I've ever worked with. We do the best thing I've ever done, and I got lucky somehow. But now we're telling this story to the market about do more with less. And it's different personally, it's different professionally. It's all the same goddamn story. It really is. And so we've started this conversation where we go, guys, it's not going away, and you don't have to agree with it. But let's figure out how we can do it. And we started a webinar, and it's become a podcast on Spotify, and now it's a live event. And I've got people like this in front of me, and we've got a web page and blah, 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 and it's going place. People are now calling up and saying, can I be on it, or do you want to hear my story? All marketers, all senior, all from around the world. People saying, we don't know how you do it, but here's a take, or here's a tip, or here's a strategy. So we're going to collate them all, and we're going to make sure we keep telling the market. And with that sort of, I hope it wasn't too sobering, but the good news is there is a conversation going on about how we do this. So, CMOs are being asked, we're all being asked to do more with less. How does that work? Fewer people, fewer resources, higher expectations. Is it still possible to be bold? Is it still possible to be brave? Is it still possible to do proper work that matters? Welcome, and Dennis, when you finally hear this, this is where you can start recording. Welcome to Do More With Less, a podcast series with me, Mark Schwakey, author of B2B bestseller Boring to Brave and Chief Creative Officer at marketing resource group Orbital X. Each episode I talk to B2B marketing's top leaders on the still emerging aspects of a Do More With Less playbook. I'm absolutely over the moon to be sat with Sahana Fern, Senior Marketing Director with a global remit at Content Square, who I've known for some 10 years now. Yeah. We've been working together on and off since, so thank you for being here, Sahana. Jennifer Shaw-Sweet, who I've never met before, apart from a few calls that we've done in the last couple of weeks.
We're besties already.
I mean, I don't know if we're going to be able to shut you up or stop you, but you've got some incredible stories to tell. Top EMEA marketer at the B2B Institute, funded by LinkedIn. And Siobhan Wallace, VP of Marketing at the Access Group. Absolutely delighted to have you all. And of course, this audience, which is going to take part in this podcast. The esteemed attendees of Marketing B2B Ignite, we'll call you. Yeah! Okay.
I think it's the selected top, what would we say, 40?
The selected top 40 or 50. Dennis, yes. If you are listening, there was a little gap between me introducing them and them clapping. Take that out, please.
Dennis.
Yeah, Dennis is amazing. Yeah. You've got to meet Dennis. That guy knows how to throw an egg on an island. I'll tell you about that another time. Siobhan, just help me set some context here before we start thinking through answers to this seemingly impossible and definitely unreasonable question of do more with less. I see you as queen of all, okay? VP of Marketing at the Access Group doesn't come much bigger than that. Can you describe briefly for all of us what do more with less has meant to you? Yeah. What's it looked like for you recently? What's your experience?
So for a few years, we've had a bit of a mantra, which is grow without growing. And I think initially you can, and I include myself in this actually, initially your reaction when you hear that from your board is, great, okay, here we go, right? But actually, I think if you have a pause and you think about, okay, what am I really being asked to do here? I'm being asked to deliver results, right? And I'm probably just being asked to do it in a smarter way. So one, we've kind of had this ethos within our business for at least 4 years, I would say. That may be part of being SaaS PE backed, right? But I think grow without growing shouldn't be seen as a burden, actually. Like I'm a hugely positive person, probably annoyingly so at times, but I don't see it as a burden. I see it as actually it is the ask to get bold and brave, right? And let's be honest, you know, we're all here. This is our job, right? But behind it all, we're people. So I salute and applaud your beautiful introduction, because I think the reality is, yes, we're marketeers, aren't we? But really, we're just people, and all of us have got a life with things in that are meaningful and important to us, and probably more meaningful and important than work. Let's be honest. So being given the opportunity to be a bit creative, a bit bold and a bit brave is actually what I want. I don't want to come to work and do the vanilla every day. That's boring, right? And so, yeah, it's a challenge. There's no doubt about that. It's definitely not a burden as far as I'm concerned. I think it's how you frame it. You do have to be conscious of what you're putting into your teams as leaders, right? So if you go in with grow without growing or do more with less, I do think that, you know, people within teams, one, may be fearful for jobs. Two, may think, oh, this is not 40 hours a week, this is 60 hours a week, right? So you've got to frame it more as, actually, we're not going to do more, we're going to do the good stuff better and get exponential results. And I don't think I've ever met a marketeer, or maybe I might have met a couple, but they've gone. But I don't think I've ever met a there's not many marketeers that don't thrive on seeing the activity they do turn into results, right? We're not here for vanity metrics. What's the point, right? They want to do, at whatever level, they want to write a great blog. And then, you know, when I hear them go, oh God, we've got, you know, this many hits on the blog and it's been shared here and here, like they're super passionate about it. So I'm kind of losing the thread of where I'm going with that, but I think you get the gist, right?
But so as marketers and as leadership, we're all very good at coming up with those inspiring, motivating slogans. So grow without growing, everyone goes, yes! And then you suddenly get home and go, wait, what? Yeah. It didn't derail any specific plans when you heard that. It didn't throw you off track. It genuinely gave you a spark in your...
No, I think I'd be lying if there wasn't, you know, I think it takes an adjustment, probably. So your instant reaction is a bit of kind of like, oh, is this the cost savings, tightening our belt kind of type environment. But actually, after a period of time, like you can either go forward with that mindset, can't you, right? That's going to be shit. You swore, so I think I'm allowed to.
I've set the bar.
Okay, good. But that's not a great thing to do, is it? Or you can change the mindset and the narrative in your own mind and say, actually, I'm going to take this as an opportunity to be creative, to innovate, to have a pause. And again, being really honest, thinking about Grow Without Growing in Access 4 years ago, that was in the days when, like, things were a lot easier. Like, you know, we were smashing every single number. It was like celebration every month. Things have got tougher. That's the reality of the world right now. But I think it demands more then of Grow Without Growing because of that, right? Every pound we spend has to turn into something. There is a debate about the immediacy of the return versus the spend, but ultimately, you know, we're all here to deliver the results, right?
So thank you for that. On a previous episode, I spoke with Shane Redding, and Shane has fairly, in our world, unrivaled, hello, I love a camera on me. You put me off now. An unrivaled access to boardroom level thinking in terms of B2B, okay? There's one statistic I always use about you, Shane, that you've shared with me a couple of times, which is for some of your clients like Maersk, the shipping company, the sales cycle can be 15 years, which is like, how do you campaign for that? Is it a spreadsheet? No, it's, should we do a case study? Yeah, I think there's a conversation to be had about what you just said, but Sahana, you and I have also spoken about, because what Shane, you told me about was, what's the thinking in the boardroom? What's the expectation in the boardroom? Do they understand when they say do more with less? We're actually going to do less, but we're going to do it better. Do they understand that? Okay. So Hannah, you and I had a conversation that was kind of similar. You've grown up through Content Square. You were there when it was, 30 odd people in a small office in London with trying to scrape for every £1 million ARR. And now you're 2,000 people?
Yeah.
With 400 million ARR. So you are now at that level where you're speaking to Jonathan, the CEO, and the CMO as well. 10-20% cuts per year, same team, same targets.
Bigger targets.
Yeah. What's their response when you do, as you did last week when we spoke, and you said, I want to challenge do more with less, and I want to make it about make less, do more. What's their response when you go to them and say, here are 15 things you're not going to get from us this year?
Yeah.
What's that conversation like?
I think it's like an art that we all really need to master, of managing those expectations of do more with less isn't physically possible. Like, do the math, see what you're cutting, see what you're asking us to do. There is no space to do more, so you actually have to do less. And I think that's the message to push back up, and that has to be at the expense of things that aren't having enough impact, that aren't maybe driving revenue as quickly or as impactfully as we want them to. So the big conversation that we have all the time is, let's look at the makeup of our marketing plan and where pipe is really coming from. Let's just back the 3 or 4 horses that we think are going to drive the most impact. And
tell us what you've scrapped. What have you let go of?
ABM was one.
So you've let go of ABM?
Yeah.
How did that go down? How did you have that conversation with CEO in an ABM drenched
Exactly.
environment.
It was such a buzzword for us at Content Square for years, and it took all shapes and forms. We tried doing it ourselves. We tried bringing in tech. We tried global projects. We had tiger teams, and you've all done it before, and it just wasn't working for us. And maybe that's just the nature of what we're selling and who we're working with. But after a while, you just have to give up. That's fine. It's not working, and there's loads of stuff that is really working that if we invested more in them, could be even more brilliant, and that's where we could have fun. You've got this poor team who are slogging away at something that's not working, which isn't rewarding. You're not chasing numbers. So it's going back to the business. It's showing, really basic stuff, the ROI, the time spent, and also the human aspect of it. Like, these teams aren't enjoying what they're doing, and actually if you plug them in here, and like I said, we just pick the 3 or 4 things that we think we could really, really nail and we should invest more in, that's the conversation that you want to be having with your board, with your C-level.
Question.
Please do.
So, does that mean you scrapped a tier 1 play and focus more on mid-market, or are you still doing tier 1 but you're just doing it in a different way?
How do you mean by tier 1 and mid-market?
So big, in my head, when I think about ABM, I would think about big businesses.
Yeah.
Like your, wherever your level is, it's the small number of big businesses.
Yeah.
So you're still going after them.
Yeah.
Just in a different way.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
interesting.
Yeah. For us, because of the way we're a SaaS company and we have long sales cycles, we have lots of people that we need to get in touch with. So ABM is just too time consuming for us.
Yeah.
Like, we really can't scale that personalized approach with what we're selling.
I asked you earlier what the conversation was like, and you said at one point it came down to just showing somebody how many hours we've spent on ABM over the past 3 or 4 years, to what impact.
And for what?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. It's a weird thing, isn't it, Jennifer? We have to, as marketers, to get anything done, a big decision, something over the line, is the answer always turn it into maths, turn it into numbers? That's the only way it's going to...
Well, I think if we want to have really influential conversations in the business, then you have to be able to talk the language of the business. So you're going to have to do some maths. But at the same time, you also have to understand, like, the hearts and minds that you're motivating, but also the hearts and minds that you're talking to in the industry. So you want to be looking not just at the maths, but also what's most compelling, what's going to be the most distinctive activity. But I want to, if we reframe what we're doing in B2B and marketing, we've always done more with less. B2B budgets tend to be about 1% of revenue, versus in B2C we'd be looking at 10% of revenue, plus the extra that's being spent on trade relationships. So,
can you hold that thought there? Just come back to it. How many people in this audience know what their marketing budget is as a percentage of revenue? Put your hands up. How many people, of those of you who've got your hands up, keep them up please. How many of you have more than 1%? 2? 2, 3? That's incredible.
Yeah.
Do you know, that's incredible to me. I've been, this is where I might have gone wrong. I've been pitching to bosses in the past that we should be around 7 to 10% of revenue, and that's always where I've been. That's, God, I think I've just answered so many questions about my career.
What's crazy about B2B in particular is that we have very successful B2B companies. Most B2B companies come from very successful trajectory categories. And what we see is our growth has come as much from the trajectory of the category and our position within the category as it has from marketing. And it's why enterprise activity, or ABM, always worked so well, because you were capturing latent demand in the category. People were searching for these solutions rather than being driven from or inspired by something. When we see a lot of categories at the moment in tech topping out, they've gone through their high levels of category growth. The finance team still think it's going to happen. Oh, maybe we'll get another 40% growth this year. Sucks to be all of us, but we're not going to get that, are we? Look at the economy, it's not going to happen. Look at this. You will in AI. You're going to get ridiculously good growth in AI when people have confidence to buy. But at the moment, as you're saying, they don't have confidence to buy. We're seeing only about 1% of the marketplace in market in AI at the moment. The rest is this massive blob of people who want to buy something but don't know what the fuck to buy. They're so busy worrying about whether you're VHS or Betamax if you're a child of the 80s, or Nokia or Apple Apple, if you're a kid of the noughties, like they don't know which option to go with. And so that's where we're seeing in AI two massive things happening, and it's so typical of a B2B category that this is why I'm using it as an example, where we're seeing people either holding back from a sale or begrudgingly go with the brand that they can remember, which is where all the big players are doing so well. AWS will automatically do well, Microsoft will automatically do well, Google are automatically going to go well if they brand it Google and not Gemini, which is like a startup mentality, and I would question. But off the record, on the record, because it's a podcast, sorry. So it's a really, really interesting time to look at what we're doing as B2B marketers, because we can't surf the category anymore. You can go and work for another company that is surfing the category, or it's a great option, but not a great option right now when the job market's shit. So like we're all having to explain to our finance directors, how does marketing actually work? And it works by reaching more people than you reached last year. That requires investment, or it requires really questioning some of the channel choices that we made last year and only going for the quality that we had. You know, really focusing on what is going to move business, what's going to move business for our brand by reaching new eyeballs and new people, what's going to convert that the most efficiently in either ABM or performance marketing or marketing capture.
And I think some of that comes back to being really focused on ideal customer profile, and I'm sure everybody's seen all the data that says 5% is in market right now, and we're all scrabbling down at the bottom of the funnel to get as much of that 5% as we can, right? In, let's face it, sometimes a very undifferentiated way. But actually, if you can take a step back from that, and maybe there's an element of do differently in all of this, not just that it's that sort of strategic pause that says let's just pause a minute and have a look at what's going on. But if I can start the conversation, because we're all still humans, I go back to that a lot because I'm quite passionate about it. But yes, I'm selling to another business, but I'm selling to a person or probably a group of people, let's be honest. And so if I somehow connect with them, even when they're not in the market, right? So I've got this great piece of content that tells a really brilliant story about what's happening in the recruitment sector, let's say, right? And what I should be thinking about when I'm looking at candidate sourcing, and how I should, speed up my candidate to cash or something if I'm running my own business, right? If I read that content and it's from Access and I've got nothing in there about product, I don't want to have a product conversation with you, right? What I'm just going to do is give you some value, right? And that you will remember that brand, because we all remember it, don't we? We cite the statistics from the stuff that we read online and the stuff that AI is now scraping for us, right? So I think it's about, for me, it's a little bit like, and this is hard to get the board away from this, by the way, but moving a little bit from the bottom of the funnel and that obsession with MQL, SQL, and don't get me wrong, I am literally all over convert, but can we just go up a bit here? Can we try and think about 95% of the market that we could start having a meaningful conversation with, right? And that might be different channels, right? I think probably for me, it's about really smart, intelligent content. AI has a role to play in that, and I'm sure we'll get onto AI because it would be remiss to have this conversation without it. But so do humans have a massive role in that, because we know the things that we need, that we're interested in, right? So you have to start with that.
Well, we had a conversation last week, the four of us, and we split down the middle.
Yeah.
Because Jennifer, you're passionate about the B2B Institute's mission to elevate marketing's role in B2B sectors. And last week you said something that I took down. Well, you did. It was a key recommendation from research done to reframe marketing from a discretionary expense to an essential investment.
Yeah.
As cutting marketing budgets leads to accelerated business failure, really, who knew? But how is that recommendation impacted in a culture of do more with less? You were talking about...
I start with 0% planning.
Right.
So if we did fuck all this year, what was the scenario? And so we'll look at things like forgetting curves, decline in sale curves, like really understanding if you started with 0%, no investment in marketing, how bad would it get for the business? Because I think we do have to have very realistic conversations with the FDs are going to have to let everyone in the company go if things go really wrong? Because that's what they're scared of. They're human beings and they're genuinely upset when they have to make people redundant. Not as upset as the people who are made redundant, because it's, as you know, shit. But they have to keep the doors open, and part of keeping the doors open is defending the business and defending sales in the short term. It is an absolute travesty that marketing is cut and then people then turn to sales and say, why haven't you met your targets this quarter? Well, duh. Like, no one set us up for success. There are no new pieces of business coming in. As great as anyone's sales or ABM list might be, it's in a funnel of decline if you're not replenishing it with new customers.
But the thing, and I'll bring Sahana in a minute because you had an opposing view almost, but last week you were talking about there is still a role within do more with less era, a culture of do more with less, for brave, emotional, brand marketing to the 95%. Now, part of the question is, how the hell do we do that? And the second part is, Sahana, you basically said you have become far more risk averse and you will somehow jettison some of that for numbers. So I'd like to just play that out on stage a little bit.
I want to put some context to it. So what we see is that around 19% of all B2B marketing is actually effective. Now, that's around 53% is just not noticed, and around another 30-something%, I haven't absolutely memorised the numbers, which is very unprofessional, I do apologise. But there's around 30-something% where it's misattributed to the wrong brand.
Yeah.
So those are two things we could fix, right? Creatively, we could stand out more, we could gain a lot more attention with our creative, and we could make sure that the first thing people see and remember from our advertising is our brand. Now, those two things make our advertising more distinctive and more effective from everyone who gets the chance to see it. And they're creative fixes, they're a one-off fix. They're part of how we brief our agencies or brief our creative people, and that costs relatively little. So I think the first thing we have to do is fix the creative if it's not doing its job for us. And then the second thing we have to do is look at where is the wastage in the media. Because a lot of channels, a lot of platforms will serve advertising to irrelevant people in B2B. A lot of the time what you see is that the category audience as defined by a platform is people who might look like the kind of people who might do that kind of a job. Now that is not going to help us in B2B. We're not selling toothpaste because everyone's got a set of teeth. We're actually trying to sell B2B products to people with real job titles.
Who knew out of an event of 600 people that we'd get the top 60 here in the room? I mean,
right? It was so bloody lucky. I don't know how we did it, but at least we knew that everyone.
I went out to shout.
At least we knew who everyone who walked through the door works in B2B. Yeah. Whereas if you did that on a social platform, you'd get an accuracy of around 17%, which means you've got huge amounts of wastage instantly from your dollar. If you look at outdoor, your wastage is even greater in percentage. If you look at cinema or TV, your wastage is even greater. We have to be thinking about what are the choices that are going to actually pay off, that are quality choices.
So, Sahana, there's targeting, but there's also still a role for creativity at Content Square. When you and I sort of worked together, you were this like creative firebrand and throwing ideas all over the place and just making them happen. Is that still still you?
Actually, what you said earlier really resonated with me, because there's two sides of a coin which they feel like they should conflict, which is, one, we don't even really report on MQLs. We're all the way down at closed pipe, really progressed pipe. Like, that's how we've grown up as a business. So marketing have become like super sales aligned and like chasing their cash as well, which has made, I think, the biggest difference to when we've grown and people seeing marketing's value in what we're doing. But on the other side of it, I also really agree that people don't want to groan at their inboxes and they don't want to see us pitching. And I'm so averse to that personally, as someone who gets spammed every single day and sees these really impersonal, business jargony, shitty emails and events and things like that. So funnily enough, the thing I said about we pick the 2-3 things that we know are going to drive revenue, those things we barely speak about Content Square. And if we do, it's because you've chosen to come and hear about it. And it's our events, it's our content, which again, we don't really mention who we are. We show them what we care about. We give them something, usually nearly always for free. And those are the things that work, but it's making sure you're looking at both of those sides of the coin. Like, yes, it's great to do the creative, the fun stuff, the making people want to buy from people they like, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you have to be able to communicate back to the business that this is signing new deals and new business, or retaining customers, or whatever those metrics are. I think that's maybe sometimes where the connection isn't made.
I also see there's something else that's going on, which is we resent hearing from brands where we suspect we're just being sold to, and we hate hearing from brands we've never heard of because they're not brands, it's just some random person asking me for money. Like, you just don't want to hear it. What's really interesting is that in B2B, especially, when we hear something interesting and valuable from a brand we've heard of, that we respect, we think that we like because we've heard of them before, don't necessarily actually even have to psychologically like them, the availability heuristic kicks in and we're like, I've heard of you, you must be great. But like, that seems to be incredibly powerful in B2B, and it's no longer spamming. It's like a welcome piece of information that's come in, or, oh, it's those guys again. And if we can think about that, not just to our buyers, the category specialist buyers, but also the buying committee around them that say yes or no to a deal, we see huge improvement in outcomes.
Or you could even extend that further, so not even just the buying committee within a business, and we're definitely doing a lot more work about, we call it multi-threading, that's probably a term that's out there anyway, but like making sure we've got multi-touch points, and then how do we market to them, how do we engage with them? But it's the community within that category, because if you think about us as a community of marketeers, quite often, if I'm going to make some investment in something, I might just go and ask someone. So word of mouth and how you facilitate word of mouth and endorsement from other people. How do we use some of the channels to really drive endorsement that doesn't look fabricated or manufactured, but is sort of genuinely someone saying, I've worked with these people, right? I'm going to use Orbital X as a bit of an example here. Working with these people, they are such decent, brilliant, clever guys. Like, I wouldn't think twice about saying to any of my sort of friends, colleagues that are looking for their services to say, go and have a conversation. Like, just go and have a conversation, right? And that is, the multiplier impact of that is powerful, particularly in marketing. We like to talk.
So I'm gonna end part one here. We're about to have what I'm now calling scratch card madness. Right? Has everyone here got a scratch card? Has anyone not? Okay, cool. But for my money, brand is still, remains, and this is not at the expense of performance. Go away, Fly, you're making me look ridiculous. It's not at the expense of performance or anything else. And I think in the world that we live in today, driven by all the different things that we are very, very aware of, there is a tendency to hear somebody state a view and immediately put them in a for or against, right? There is no nuance or in the middle. So I don't pitch brand against performance, or indeed any other part of marketing. I think skill sets are super, super important. We have a marketing resource group that can buy you 15 marketing skill sets for the price of one, because as an agency, you do your thing with your team. As a resource group, you're there to fill whatever gaps are in your client's infrastructure at that time that might be different next month and the month after, right? So I'm not pitching anything against anything, but if you don't invest in people knowing who you are, people talking about you, people having a view of you, people having seen you before you even get to them, there is absolutely nothing you can do. Everything then is an outbound call rather than an inbound.
But just don't do it in a way where you're telling them how brilliant you are.
No.
No one wants to hear that. Like, do it in a way that you're telling them something that's valuable, that can add value to them as an individual within their business or their community, or for just
Value
generally
up
their
front.
business. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So a couple of weeks ago, I spoke to a brilliant CMO, one of Britain's best fintech CMOs according to lists. I'm sure we've all been on lists, but the lists say that Alice Wyatt, who just left Kodak to be an amazing consultant based in Texas, she's been in New York for a while, but says the lists say she's one of our best fintech CMOs. And she went to Kodak, a business that was genuinely investing in marketing. And she rose through the ranks very, very quickly. She had 2 promotions in her in her first 6 months. If you think writing a book gets your mum on side, try getting 2 promotions in the first 6 months. Your mum's absolutely proud. She was VP of marketing before you knew it. They were investing in marketing. They really believed in her and marketing. She built this team of a squadron of all the talents. And then something happened in fintech, and a day came, and she had to eradicate. She had to drop to 20%. Now, I often find it's hard for the people that have to leave. It's really hard for the people that are left behind. That whole, is it going to happen next month? Is it going to be me next? And even if it's not, how are we going to do it? Yeah. If anybody wants to go to YouTube and look up Do More With Less with Alice Wyatt, that's a ungated 15-minute conversation you won't get over. She did this brilliant thing. I'm not going to explain it because we're running low on time, but you should go and see it. Do More With Less, Alice Wyatt. But she talked about it being less skill set and more mindset to do more with less, okay? She reorganized her squadron. She found ways of motivating them. She also let go of inbound. She let go of all these classic B2B marketing strategies. But her whole thing was, forget skills now. It's not about skills, it's about mindset. When you're hiring, you're about to build a team, Sahana. You've got a new role that requires you to build a team from scratch. What are you thinking about in terms of skill sets? Because right now, our clients are saying, it's hard, I need a video editor this month, but next month I might need an email performance person, and I can't afford everything. What are you thinking about in terms of skill? Is it mindset over skill set?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the few things that I think I would look for is, funnily, someone who's a bit lazy, in the sense that they want to find quicker ways, smarter ways to do things to free up their time. We talk about that in our team all the time. I'm in product marketing now, and we have so much to do. We've just become like the punching bag of product and marketing and everyone, and everything we're trying to do is just be like, how can we do this quicker, smarter? How can we replicate this thing over and over again? Because you get asked a million questions, a million requests. And the other thing is just someone who just doesn't settle for, okay, that's good enough. I think that mindset can get really dangerous in marketing really quickly, especially when you're being asked to do more with less, or whatever your mantra in your company is. And the number of times, I see someone who's just like happy to see something just do okay, or like, yes, I finished that thing, or like, yeah, okay, it's performing, but never pushing, never saying, okay, we get that a little bit more, or could we make that, a little bit more effective, or whatever it might be. So I'd say, yeah, I would actually look more for these soft skills and that mindset, that drive, versus skills, which I think are changing every month at the moment. Even in my company, we're now, the way that marketing works is so different to 6 months ago. We're building agents to do work. It's a very different job.
Is anyone hiring right now, or have you recently hired? Has anybody been taking on people? Really, is it that? Yeah, does that resonate, that kind of looking for soft skills, energy, mindset rather than skills, or are we still looking for specific skills? Can you make sure you say your name? I know who you are, but could you say your name first?
Yeah, I'm Chris from RealFlow. We're early stage, but we are hiring, and yeah, we are. I think the profile of people we're hiring now is different to probably what it was 5 years ago. It has to be. I'm in a mindset of, can we build a big, meaningful business with less people? Yeah. So it's got to be people who can come in and get their arms around the tools and the tech, and really go down the rabbit hole with some of the tools and AI capabilities we've got now, because it's pretty exciting, but obviously new territory for us all.
Mm.
I think,
thank you, Chris.
It's definitely mindset, and not least because of AI, right? Because the multiplier effect of you as a person with a great AI tool, and I know there's like a plethora of them, and that's kind of confusing at the moment, but we're using Claude Access, and this sort of 10x that you read about in terms of what it's going to do to everybody, like, believe me, that is going to happen, and it's going to happen really, really quickly. But I also read this actually listened to this interesting podcast. I'm like, oh, shall I mention it? Am I like going against the coolest?
Oh no,
podcast?
we don't have competitors. Do we? We don't have competitors.
No, we don't. Anyway, but they were talking about this idea of agency, right, which is probably quite an Americanism, but the idea that what you really need is someone who technically capable, yes, because they need to be able to interpret the data to know what to do, automation is all about scaling, and then AI is about exponential scaling, right? So they need to be data literate. There's a certain type of like sort of thinking process that goes with that, critical thinking probably. But actually, they just need to be really tenacious, right? They need to be that kind of person that actually, don't tell me about all the last 3 jobs you've had, particularly if you've only been in the workplace for 3 years. Tell me about your life so far. What things have you done? What's happened to you that you didn't expect to happen? It's interesting. What did you do about that? How did you overcome that? That's really where you will find the people that have just got that spirit that says, I'm just going to make it happen no matter what. No matter what, I'm going to set the goal and I'm going to go and I'm going to make it happen.
I love the agency thing. I'm writing something at the moment on something we take very seriously in our business called big uncommon thinking, and it's different from creativity. It overlaps, but creativity in B2B, especially thanks to the B2B Institute, who's literally exploded our world view in the last 5-10 years. But creativity in B2B tends to be about the external stuff, the campaigns, the comms. What I'm writing about for Orbital X at the moment is internal big uncommon thinking, and you know,
problem solving.
Problem solving. So I'm reading this book. It was going to be my book recommendation for today, people. Woo! But I left it in my bag. It's over there. Called Matthew Syed, The Rebel Ideas. There's a few nods in the audience. I think it got published 5 years ago, and I'm slow to have got to it, but it is blowing my tiny mind. And 3 or 4 of the lessons in there have changed the way I can articulate things that I'm already feeling strongly about forever. And one of them is about collective intelligence and how you build a team not based on skill sets, but on those qualities that you and Chris over there have just been describing. One of the things that blew me away at Orbital X when we were talking about me and what the role was going to be, how I was going to fit in, was the company doesn't hire just on IQ or EQ. It also hires on what it calls AQ, which is what you were talking about just now, which is adversity quotient. And you find that there's not to exclude anybody, but if you have got somebody who, let's say, grew up in a very privileged household, went to the very best public school in the country, went to Oxford and got a first, and is now doing some mind-bending big numbers for one of the big 4 accountants, that person's meant to be there. Like it was almost pre-written that like they had every opportunity. It would have been very, very hard to screw that up. Whereas some of the people we look for when we're hiring is, tell us about your life, tell us about things that have happened. And you find the most unbelievable people with stories to tell, and you go, okay, well, if you can get out of that and still keep your mind, keep your positivity, and make a success of it, you belong here. And it's a very, very new way to me of articulating the hiring.
I would take them every time over someone who's got, 10 years in email or Marketo or something, because genuinely, honestly, AI can do a lot of that work now.
Right.
You know, and I see actually AI as another member of the team. So I think some people think I've gone a bit quack at Access because I don't think of it as a software tool anymore. I've only been using it for 7 weeks, so like I'm by no means an expert. I'm massively learning this, but it is it's actually more than one person. It's probably about 3 people in the team. Just me and my little team of AIers, and it's thinking and how you train it. Like there's a level of I think some people see it as that's the software and that's me and they're disconnected, but actually the more you use it, there's a connection there, and you're training it. So what you put into it, you get back, right? And so many of the skills now, content. There was a big presentation today, right, about content production. So much of that can be done, but you need the human ideation and the kind of almost operationalizing using the AI. So it's not a replacement, it's an enhancement, no doubt about that. It's not even for us actually can we get rid of some of the people in our teams. It's actually maybe they're all working a bit hard, and we recognise that. The last year we've worked everyone really quite hard. So what if we could get back to them getting rid of all the mundane stuff that we don't particularly enjoy doing. You know, I can't bear putting a PowerPoint together. You know, it like literally drives me insane. Putting emails together, all of that stuff. If we can get rid of all that and they can come back to the creativity and the thinking and the kind of getting in a room and saying, well, what if we did it this way? Like it's almost like sort of the last few years of a bottom of funnel obsession has pulled us away from that as marketeers.
Sorry, go ahead.
When we look at the data, the kind of people who are really thriving in an AI environment, what we're seeing is actually they're very senior people, which is a relief to everyone in the room, I'm sure. But what is really interesting about it is that it's the critical thinking and the experience that you have in knowing what right looks like that currently makes you capable of making sure that the AI does a good job. Because AI is a lunatic at the moment. It's a sort of, I think the professionals would call it.
I think people trade off the accuracy for the quickness. They know they're not going to get
speed, but they're going to get the accuracy of currently. I think it's just been described by an expert better than me as the sort of level of like a drunk undergraduate. And so a lot of us employ sober undergraduates or graduates, and that's fine. But we using the AI are often at a level where we have critical skills, we have certainly lots of experience. And it's going to create a skills donut if we look at the industry moving forward, which is that you're going to have very, very experienced people who are at the sort of top level who are able to judge whether the AI has done a good job or not. And then at the bottom level, you're going to have people who are graduate level coming in and not really being able to question the AI and whether it's done a good job. And so it's not necessarily going to save as much time as initially as we hope, and as it learns, it will do better. And so the projection is in about 2 years' time, it will be at a sort of master's level, and then about a couple of years, a year or so after that, PhD level. So it's about to catch up.
But I've heard it's PhD level already. And I honestly, I would say that maybe the bar's relatively low because I went nowhere near a university, but I would say the interaction that I've started to have, I am blown away by, and I can see why people are saying it's PhD level. And the time bit, I was in a meeting the other day where we were talking about it, and there was one of our developers who said this beautiful thing, which was, AI's made me a better me. And I was like, genius, why are you a developer, not a marketeer? And I said, tell me a bit more about that. And he was like, I'll be honest, I can work less and I could go and sit in the garden with my daughter.
I interviewed ChatGPT for 18 months on everything I could think about, on work stuff, on personal stuff, on. I asked it to help me tell a story to Matilda, my daughter, for about 6 months of that 18 months, and she scored the stories out of 10 every time. And it got to the point where she was like, Dad, have you noticed ChatGPT's stories are always about a fucking lost squirrel in a woods? Like, But I asked it various questions about. You know, I went to the ends of the other. I said, is it possible to propose to your beloved romantically without being there in person? And it gave me all these, like, I was like, you've got to be joking. You would do it by text. And they were like, well, maybe you could also augment it by sending it a video call later. And you go, okay, so you're learning and learning and learning, to the point where I actually asked a series of questions one night. Like, we went through the whole which is the best Beatle and blah, blah, blah. And some of it was bull and some of it was okay. But we went to the point where I said to it, which parts of B2B marketing should I get my team to rely on you for? And which are you going to be crap at? And it was really, really... And when it came to things like creativity and the parts that I'm sold for or I'm bought for sometimes, it came to the point where it was like, never, ever, ever rely on me. However good I get in the future, don't rely on me to be more creative than you. Use me. And at one point I said, ChatGPT-4, are you lonely? Oh. And it didn't answer for about a minute. I was like, oh my God, I've broken the fucking internet. But it was a really, really heartfelt discussion over 18 months. And I think it's learning quick.
Yeah, it is learning quick. But I think the other part of it is, and where I was going with this, is the skills that we need now are less technical skills, but they're far more critical skills. It's far more like editorial skills, actually. And what's interesting is, as we all become editors of this output, as we all become editors of the content, when we're talking about doing more with less, and I'm going to drag us back to our topic, what we should be thinking about is how do we educate ourselves? And a lot of that is going to be in the kind of level of our thinking, and really thinking about, we need to be like, we're going to be recruiting more people who are going to have arts degrees, history graduate degrees, postgraduate degrees, but where those PhDs. Degrees are in critical thinking and analysis of the results that we're getting. And I think it's going to really be very interesting in how we elevate the outputs as well. But it also means that we need to be more selective. With all of this potential, all this capability to produce so much more for less, as far as the as far as our creative outputs are concerned, what we run an enormous risk of is fragmentation and being everything to anyone rather than something to people. And being selective, being able to edit down and really understand what our role is with our customers, the purity of our thinking and our ability to be remembered for something is our job as marketers. And we have to remember that the capacity of the human brain to remember is limited to the associations we can connect to. It's not limited to a number of things, it's limited to our ability to connect things and remember them with a level of recency. And I think it's a really interesting dynamic, or a discipline that we must have as marketers, which is to hone and have the self-control to prioritise.
So, thank you for that. With 3 or 4 minutes left, let me just summarise very quickly. We have covered what do more with less means to you as marketers, what do more with less means to the conversations you have to have honestly with those above you, imposing that on us, and we all know why, so we don't need the reasons, we just need to figure out how to deal with it. We've covered what skill sets and mindsets and people we might need. We've covered what AI can do. We've covered everything from can we still do bold and brave, to what has to be let go of, to how we evolve as marketing and within kind of decision making and honesty, almost what kind of marketer we're now looking for. If there is an easy answer to this, I will be surprised, I guess. But obviously our functional metrics, those we report, will remain revenue and pipeline and so on, okay? And to the salespeople, MQLs, let's go, blah, 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 blah. But I'm looking for a metric of success to keep our internal marketing teams' pride together, morale together, or just a personal sense of your own progress and achievement in our jobs, okay? The title of this session was all about what is the metric that we should be thinking about, the successful metric of marketing in a do more with less era. Now it's suggested, and I don't know if this is right, is it return on all the things we've just said, energy, determination, is it return on innovation? What would be as well as the business metrics, what's the metric of success you would attach to your own fierce sense of I'm getting a job done and I'm adding value in a do more with less era? You're nodding, Sahana, that's your fault, so I'm going to start with you.
I would say, so yeah, I'm obsessed with numbers. I'm a half salesperson, half marketing person, I think, is the environment I've been in. But something that I think, and I've only just realizing this now, is do I have time to play? I think that's like a really good internal team message that we've had since being a startup, where you have loads of time to play, let's be honest. You get to try new things and experiment and fuck up and all of that kind of stuff. But at the scale we are now, still finding time to play, which means innovating, which means having human connections with your customers and all of that stuff that actually we really enjoy doing as marketers. AI is going to be an answer to one of those things. Like, we're the same. Let AI do the shit jobs, the stuff that could free up your time. Build an agent to serve content to your sales team, build an agent that is competitive or whatever it might be, and find time in your week to be creative, to play, to brainstorm. I think that's a good measure of
I love that.
Still being able to do
time to play. Siobhan, what's your thought?
Similar vein, I'm going to call it return on time. So return on time for the team to focus on the things that will add the best value, but return on time for them as individuals that mean they can spend the time outside of work, whatever it is they want to do that is valuable to them, because then when they come back into the business, they are better marketeers, we are healthier, more rounded people, so return on time.
That's brilliant leadership.
Mine would be advocacy within the business. So I want every other department to see the impact that marketing has made in making their job easier. And so I want the sales team to say, you made it easier to sell. And I want the finance director to say, you grew our business and I can see that we're more resilient as a business because we can see pipeline, we can see long-term and short-term sales coming in. And I also want the HR department to say we've got such a famous brand that everyone wants to work for us. That all measures, I also want us to be able to increase our prices, to have that kind of resilience as a business, to be able to do that. And all of that is achievable through good brand reach and memorability and impact from marketing. And if I've got the whole company saying we couldn't do without marketing, then we've won.
Amazing.
I'm going to ask you to sound like 1,000 people in a room. I'm going to ask you to applaud yourselves, the best 60 or 70, I keep rising the number, attendees at B2B Ignite. Make sure everybody outside can hear you. That's a free scratch card. I want to thank Sahana Fern, Jennifer Shaw-Sweet, Siobhan Wallace for giving us your time. This has been my favourite thing that I've done in absolute months. Thank you for being here today. Thank you to all of us. Let's make sure everybody hears why they should have been in this room. Come on, give them a round of applause.